Good afternoon, class. This is your librarian for your class, and I'm just going to be showing you how to find some articles that actually relate to, that will help prove that the person that you chose is a Consilient thinker. Okay, and the one I'm going to be using today is Steve Jobs. And what we're going to do is again, you can see that I'm started out at the Lee College homepage, so you know how to get to the library guide. So under college operations, you hover over that, go to library, click on library. All right, from library, then you come over here, click on libguides. Under libguides, there's this down arrow button here. I'm going to click where it says select a guide, click on that down arrow button. I'm going to scroll down to English 1302 Miller. Don't confuse it with English 1301 Miller. You want English 1302 Miller. Click on Go. All right. Now, if you want to avoid all these steps in the future, I suggest that you just bookmark the page, where you bookmark this tab, and you can access your libguide directly. So I highly recommend that you bookmark this page, so it'll save you those number of steps. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is some strategies, search strategies when you're searching a database. First thing I'm going to go to is something called keywords. It'll tell you as to how many keywords you should use in a search. It's kind of a fun, entertaining video, and also you can learn something from it.
And now, a promise from Kimball Library. The following instructional video will contain answers to the following questions. What do chickens and breakfast cereal have in common? What is the meaning of life? And how many keywords should you use when searching library databases? In order to find sources for your annotated bibliography, you'll need to search library databases. To do this, you will need keywords. If you've ever searched Google, you've used keywords, but library databases aren't Google. In Google, or other search engines, you can describe the thing you're looking for and use that description in your search. For example, I can search for articles on STDs in college students and get results. Library databases don't work this way. For starters, they almost exclusively contain articles, so adding the term article to your search is like asking a crowd of zombies if anyone wants to eat you. Sure, you'll get a reply, but it's not going to be the one you want. You got to take a different approach. When you search a library database with a keyword, the database returns articles containing that word. To be successful, you need to imagine the article you want to find and guess what kinds of words might actually live in the article. Once you've imagined some words that might occur within the article you want, you don't want to dump them all into the search box and hope for the best.
Avast, Jim lad. Chumming up the water won't be bringing that thar white whale any faster. Yar.
That was my pirate friend, Jack. That's right. I have a pirate friend. What are you going to do about it? As long as we're using nautical metaphors, it might be better to think of the right number of keywords as if they were bowls of Captain Crunch. One bowl is never enough. But more than 4, and you start to die inside a little bit. If you don't like cereal, then compare the keywords to the number of chickens you should hide in your dorm room closet. 1 chicken shows some school spirit, but it's contemptibly insufficient. On the other hand, if you keep more than 5, they might band together and stage a coup. A chicken coup. So remember, as a general guideline, use 2 to 4 keywords when you search library databases, and avoid groups of more than 4 chickens.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video. It kind of gives you a little overview about how the number of keywords that you might want to use in a search. I will also show you another technique in doing a database search, and that is you can either broaden the number of results that you get, or more often you want to narrow the number that you get. Like for instance, when you do a Google search, you might have like 10,000 hits. You might want to reduce that. You'll definitely want to reduce that to about 1,000. And you do that by ANDing terms together, and I'll show you how that works. It's called Boolean operators. It's not that complicated, okay? Boolean sounds difficult, but it's not. So you basically use two terms, or and and. The or operator will give you more results. So, and you use those with synonyms. So we have two words that are kind of synonyms, impact or influence. So if you do an or operator, you will pull any kind of article that has the word impact in it. You'll also pull books that have any words that say influence, and you'll get all of them, okay? So you'll get both articles about impact and articles about influence, or articles that say both, okay? So you can see how that's a large number. But if you want to narrow your search, then you and terms together. You use the word and you put them in capital letters. For instance, if I wanted to find out the impact or influence George Lucas had on other people, then what I want to do is I want to search George Lucas and any articles that say impact or influence. And you can see how that narrows the search. So that's kind of the dynamics you want to do when you're doing a database search. All right? Now I'm going to go back to our LibGuide. And one thing I'm going to show you, and I'm going to do a search on Steve Jobs. And because I'm doing a search on Steve Jobs, there's going to be tons of articles on him. So I think sometimes it's better to do an academic search complete if you have a person that has so many citations or articles about them, so it can narrow it. Because the one search is a gigantic database. And it's not just a database, it's a database of databases in that it searches more than one database at a time. In fact, most of our databases, but not all. Academic Search Complete is basically searching that one database. Okay, so I'm going to do a search in Academic Search Complete, and this is going to basically be the same type of search that you'd search in one search. So it's all transferable skills. So what I'm going to do is do a search for Steve Jobs on the top line, and then the second line I'm going to type the following words: innovation or creativity. Oh, I was going to do inventions. Notice that down below it mentions, it says all those terms, so I'm going to click on all of those. All right, so those are all synonyms, so I'll retrieve any article that talks about Steve Jobs and uses the word innovation or creativity or invention, with the idea being that hopefully the results will be articles that will be about his ingenuity, his innovative state of mind. So I'm going to click on search. All right, and I click on search, and the first one's not a very positive one. It says why Steve Jobs was no Edison. But that doesn't mean, now notice there's a 228 results, okay? But don't let that stop you. You can still go down and find more. I mean, sometimes you want to narrow it down, but sometimes you want to just look and see what might be available. So I'm scrolling down. Shoot. Oh, here's one. Number 7. It says a reaction after the 1998 iMac introduction. That might be one that might be relevant as to help proving that he might be a Consilient thinker. And what you always want to do is you want to click on the title and read the abstract to see if that article might be relevant. Okay, and it says this article presents information on launch of iMac computer by Apple in the year 1998. According to author, iMac perfectly represents changes made by Steve Jobs to the culture of Apple. The computer was controversial as it included many changes, including removal of the floppy drive present in earlier Apple computers. And that says 6 pages. Now that may not be relevant to his Consilient thinking, so you'd want to go read the article, the full article itself, and you do that by clicking on PDF on the left-hand side. All right? That's that article. And let's say you're interested in that article, then you'd want to save it to the folder so you can go back and email those articles to you. Now, this is an interesting one. This is Steve Jobs and Apple Company's narcissistic personality disorder. This is a psychologist who has kind of looked over the corporate culture at Apple and perhaps Stephen Jobs, but that's not necessarily what makes him Consilient. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that was a Consilient article. Now this is one, Inventor of the Future. Perhaps that might be a good one. And so click on that. Again, you want to look at the abstract. This says the article focuses on Steve Jobs, Chief Executive Officer of the computer manufacturer Apple information, including his childhood growing up with his adoptive parents in California, his creation of Apple with his friend Stephen Wozniak. So you can see that if it goes actually all the way back to his childhood, there might be some, you might be able to get some insight or be able to infer that what may have made him a Consilient thinker. So this would be definitely a good article to choose. So I'm going to scroll up here and I'm going to click on Add to Folder. All right, let's go back, see if we can find some more. All right, now we have how Apple does it. Endless innovation, that might be one. Timeline is presented of the life of Steve Jobs, co-founder, chief executive officer, and CEO of computer Apple. So his whole life is presented here. Notice it's 5 pages in length where it says 5p. So that might be another article that I'd be interested in. So I'm going to click on that. Scroll down. Here's one about Steve Jobs himself. The article profiles Steve Jobs, the late chief executive officer of the computer and technology company Apple, focuses on Jobs' ability to create technological innovations at a rate that surpasses others. So I would say this is definitely one. And it might actually talk about how he was able to make it at a rate higher than others. And just keep going down to see if there might be any more. Here's something called second order effects of Steve Jobs. You'd have to look and see and unfortunately, that one's not available in our library, but if you needed it, you could actually click on this and do an interlibrary loan with us. And if you click that and you fill out a form, then we will get that form and we will borrow that article from another library. Now, some libraries with this coronavirus might be closed, and so they may or may not be able to get it back to us in a decent amount of time. So I'd basically recommend that you just skip those for now. Okay, here's Steve Jobs Nobel Laureate. Again, you want to look to see how many pages it is to see if it's worthwhile. That's 12 pages. So you could see where maybe that might be I might have examples of that he's a Consilient thinker and how he was able to become a Nobel laureate. Another one is Reinventing the Inventor. The article presents the article's perspective on inventors, the role of inventors as people who perfect a final product rather than those who create something from their own inspirational ideas. And then there's Creation Myth. The article discusses the history of technological innovations of Xerox PARC, which was part of the Xerox Corporation, and Apple. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, visited Xerox PARC in 1979. In fact, Steve Jobs was the one who basically took the idea of images from Xerox and ran with it. Xerox dropped that particular line. So you can see that might be another one. So I'm going to save that. All right, and go back up here and save Reinventing the Inventor. So you can see that there was quite a few, and the Nobel laureate. You can see that there's quite a few results that we got with this search, and good results at that. All right, so I recommend at this time that you take the time right now. I'll give you about 2 minutes to jot down this type of search so you can do it for your Consilient thinker. So in the top line, you want to do Steve, the name of your Consilient thinker, and on the second line, use those terms, innovation or creativity or invention. Again, I'll give you time to write those down. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to write the next possible search that you could use, and that is motivation. And I'm just going to put motivat, because if you put an asterisk, that will get all different different versions of that word. So motivator, motivation, etc. And I'm going to also do the word, let's see, inspiration. So what would be the inspiration for Steve Jobs? So then that would be the next search. So now that you've had time to write those words down, I'm going to go back and delete those and do a search with these terms. And you want to jot these down also, because you might want to use this with your Consilient thinker. All right, and notice that as long as you're doing a search and we go back and we do more articles and we put them in the folder, it'll continually add them. But if you accidentally get out of this search, log out, or close this window, the results that you saved before in your folder will be lost. Okay, so that's why sometimes it's good to come up here and click on sign in and register for that particular register for this particular database, and then sign in, so the next time you log on, those articles will still be there. I highly recommend that. All right, just in case you accidentally get out of a database at one time. So I'm going to do a search with that search strategy. Okay, now there's 33 articles in this database concerning that, which is a good number, not too many. So perhaps you might want more. Okay, oops. So I'm going to go up here, Steve Jobs and the Nature of Engineering. Here, this is perfect. It says, the article discusses how the contributions of the late Steve Jobs to various disciplines shed light on the nature of engineering, art, and leadership, and how the skills in these areas complement each other. So I'm going to click on that. The brief time, let's see, that's a second order of effects. Jobs inspired Apple, and Next products were platforms for many of the amazing innovations we take for granted today. This web extra video features Charles, so this might be another one you might want. Lead, inspire, innovate. The author discusses the characteristics of Steve Jobs, which include innovator, leader, and inspiration that could be used by planners in the face of tough economic conditions. So that might be another one you'd be interested in. And we already have reinventing the inventor. And you just come down here and just scroll down them. Go scroll down the list and see if you can find something. Oh, here's one. Steve Jobs, a master of vision, motivation, and execution. Now, this might be an article that talks just about him, not necessarily about the consilient nature of what he does or what he did. And that's basically about it for that particular search. So those are two different search strategies that I highly recommend that you use to find articles about how your person might be consilient. So finally, I'm going to come up here to folder. And you can see I've saved 10 articles. So I can click on select all. And then I want to, this time I'm going to print it to myself, but you can also email it to yourself. I'm going to print it. And I'm going to do the in citation format. So I'm going to click citation format. and then click on this and go down to MLA because that's the citation format you need it in. I'm going to click on print. This is how you can create your endnotes. Okay, so there's your works cited list. And I'm not actually going to print it, but this is how you could. So, but if you don't want to print it and just copy it, just click on cancel. You just come down here and you scroll down and you copy all that list, which is really great. All right, you copy and paste that and put it into your paper. There you have your works cited list in MLA format. Again, that's going to save you a lot of time. All right, I thank you very much. That's all I have for this particular session. I wish you luck that you can find and prove that your person is a Consilient person. Good luck. Thanks again.